This is Heather Clary, Samantha Rood, and Shannon Surell, and this is our presentation on how to do research.
First, we're going to jump into knowing the learners. This unit is designed for fourth grade students. In this particular classroom, 16 students total. None of the students are considered ESL or EL. We have 2 students who speak another language at home other than English, 1 student with an IEP and a 504, 2 students who receive speech and language, 1 with a reading intervention, and 1 student who needs a standing desk. Hopping over to the background knowledge, students were briefly introduced to biographies in 3rd grade, but they do not have an extensive idea of how to research for biographies. So this is going to be relatively new to them, where we're really going to dive in deep. And the students generally are engaged with online simulators and projects. They're a very hands-on class. Okay, for the learning objectives, we did focus on 3 of them. 2 are writing and 1 is reading informational text. We want students to be able to identify key information about somebody's life with at least 90% accuracy on a post-assessment. We would like students to be able to integrate information that they gather from research from at least 2 or more sources into a speech and a presentation with at least 5 out of 6 categories in a rubric completely by themselves. The 3rd objective would be focusing on collecting those sources, at least 3 different ones, with at least 80% accuracy.
For this project, we decided to use Gagne's 9 events of instruction. On this slide, you can see the first 4. Number 1, gaining the attention of the students. We want to make sure that we have a good hook for our lesson and that we get our students excited to learn. Number 2, we want to inform the students of the objectives so that they know what they are expected to learn. Number 3, we want to stimulate the recall of prior learning back to their prior knowledge. We want to make sure that we are connecting to what the students already know. For number 4, we need to present the content, and this is just where we teach the students. Number 5, we're going to be providing learning guidance. We want to help the students learn how to learn. For number 6, we're eliciting performance. We want the students just to practice. Number 7, we're providing feedback, filling the gaps of misunderstandings that the students might have. Number 8, assessing performance. We want to know, did the students learn what we wanted them to? Number 9, enhancing retention and transfer. This is when our teachers are using real-world application of this new skill.
So as we jump into the main technology, the students will be using Google Slides, and there are 3 main parts of value added when using this tool. The first is being able to provide very quick and simple feedback and assistance. When we jump into that feedback part, we know that teachers and students can provide feedback to the students or their classmates anytime and anywhere. So that means morning, afternoon, or evening, and they can be at school, at home, or pretty much anywhere there is internet. The other great thing about Google Slides is that there's an explore button. So rather than students having to jump over to Google and jump back to the presentation, they can simply click this button and it allows them to do research in their presentation. There are links that can be directed straight into their assignment, and it just makes their research project a lot easier. The other 2 assistive kind of technologies and the additional ones they'll be using will be Google Forms for the pre and post assessment, and for and Flipgrid will be used for extra information that the students will provide during the Wax Museum. Okay, now we're going to hop over to the day-to-day description. Day 1 is really just introducing the students to the idea of conducting research for a biography project. Students are also going to be made aware that they're participating in a wax museum where they will get to dress up as their person of choice and participate by reading out a speech in first person. Day 2 is when students are going to be presented with the Google Slides presentation that contains all of their objectives that need to be met for their research. And the teacher is also going to teach how to find reputable sources. On days 3 and 4, these days are dedicated to the students conducting research and attaining all the information to meet those objectives and requirements. Students will then pick and choose from this information to write a 1 to 2 minute speech in the first person that they can present at their wax museum. Day 5, students will use gathered information to make little snippet videos on Flipgrid. These are specific to the individual's life. For example, Abraham Lincoln's education. So when someone scans the QR code that is printed out from Flipgrid, when you scan it, it takes you right to that video. Day 6, students are actually participating in the Wax Museum. You can go up with an iPad, scan those QR codes, hear their speech, watch the videos they've created, and also students can provide feedback of the performance and the information. And then lastly, on day 7, students will fill out a post-assessment on Google Forms, letting us know all their thoughts on the unit, and this will reflect the data from the pre-assessment as well. Students will also be scored via a rubric for the information attained for their Google Slides. We chose a couple of different options for students who may be in a mixed ability classroom. First, we could provide materials for them. That can be very tough for some students, so providing those makes the research the focus versus finding sources. We also could provide videos and podcasts, which can be very beneficial for visual and auditory learners. Last but not least, we could focus on using graphic organizers and sentence stems, which can really help students who struggle with writing. 3 tools we can use would be Snap and Read, Clicker Writer, and Mote. Snap and Read is beneficial for text on a screen. Clicker Writer can really help students who struggle with writing, spelling, and reading. And Mote can be very beneficial for students who need to hear the instructions in the Google Slides. Okay, here's a little sneak peek at our handouts. Both of these are very important and crucial for the students to have for the unit. Handout 1 is simply the objectives from the Google Slides, but in paper form. So students can kind of map out all of their ideas, pencil, paper, erase these things before they type them. This is basically just a rough draft matching sheet for them. And handout 2 is where students are learning how to cite sources that they've pulled their information from. So the teacher already goes over this, but then this handout is just for the students' reference, so they can go back and see how to cite those books and websites that they use to gather their information from.
Next up is our sample student artifact. For this, you can see that we created a Google Slides just like the students would. We used Marie Curie as an example. Students would go through and use their research to find things like this important information of their person, as well as family and childhood information, education, hobbies, and interests, major accomplishments, impact that person made on today's society, more fun facts, and some famous quotes. Students would be expected to add pictures, their grammar, spelling, and overall presentation would be assessed. They would also have a bibliography where they would cite their sources that they learned how to do previously.
As we move into the online digital content where everything is going to be stored, we have created what we call a digital classroom or a digital room. Each of the different items in and on this screen are clickable. So they could click on the computer, they could click on the bust of Albert Einstein, the papers, and so forth. Each of these are linked to different resources that they would be using throughout the unit, such as handouts, a video from the Wax Museum, and a link to their Google Slide presentation. Next, we're going to be talking about assessing student learning of content. So we have pre and post assessments are going to be on Google Form. Then the students will be graded on their Google Slides via a rubric that covers all 7 main topic areas and then the objectives that go with each topic area. And our goal is for students to have accurately presented 16 of the 20 objectives correctly, indicating accuracy of 80% or greater. When we talk about the effectiveness of the unit, students will also be assessed using a Google form, and it's going to be an end of unit survey. Students will be provided a couple of questions that they need to rate from 1 to 5, 1 being not good at all, 5 being fantastic or really great. Questions such as, did you enjoy creating a speech and Flipgrid videos? And was it helpful for the Google slide presentation? And was it just helpful for you to organize your information? They'll also need to answer a couple of questions in short answer form, such as maybe what part of the research process is still tricky for you.
Last but not least, we're going to talk about the conceptual categorization of this project using the SAMR model. We decided that our project is an augmentation or modification level because the Google Slides gives the students the opportunity to work from anywhere. It gives peer as well as teacher feedback. There's automatic suggestions. There's the Explore feature, comments, as well as adding links, images, diagrams, etc. We know that this moves beyond the substitution level because it is not just a basic PowerPoint or paper pencil project. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our final project on research.